Number 14, Luke Kuechly.
And then it's intercepted, picked off 10, 5 right side, A.J. Klein takes it to the house for a touchdown.
That's Luke Kuechly right there. That's Luke Kuechly.
Very quiet. Goes onto the field, flips the switch, lunatic.
Hey, I'm all over him. Hey, we gotta go now, Chuck. Left! Ain't nobody know you.
3rd and 3, and here they come. It's Kuechly who gets to Manning back at the 9.
Favorite blitz, sending these linebackers up inside, and Luke Kuechly just so fast.
Luke Kuechly, he reminds me of Peyton Manning, a guy that is totally prepared, that is going to know what's going to happen before it takes place because he has studied so much.
On 2nd down, Romo looking to throw, has time, zings it, and it's intercepted at the 38-yard line. Kuechly has it. He's going to go into the house. It's the 2nd pick 6 of the game for the Carolina Panthers.
Yes, my choice as the number 14 player of the last 25 years, the great linebacker of the Carolina Panthers, Luke Kuechly, is joining the show. And Luke, you've been out of the game now for 5 years. I'm sure you're not thinking at the time, you know, when you're winning Defensive Player of the Year in your second year and you're making these big plays and leading a Super Bowl run, I hope I get on a list in 5 years on some podcast that my beat writer Jourdan Rodrigue is on. But you are on that list, and can you at least look back and maybe not about the list, but enjoy the body of work that you put out there as a player back then?
Yeah, it makes me feel old. You feel like you just got out of the NFL, and it's been 5 full years. I'm going into year 6 being out, and it's you watch those videos and you're like, man, I looked so young in those pictures. But man, it was so fun. I had that's the thing that I tell everybody is I had so much fun playing the game of football. I loved being in Carolina. I loved Ron Rivera, all the guys on our team we were super close with, and it was a special time for me. It was a special time for my family, and I think I was just so fortunate to have the opportunity to play in Carolina for that team, for that organization, and inside of that defense. I think it really helped me during my career.
Yeah, Luke, I remember my first day, scared out of my mind, by the way, young journalist, young beat writer, going into this team of absolute superstars. And I was talking to your pal, JJ Jansen, last week, who's still going somehow. I mean, long snapper and linebacker, a little bit different, but somehow he's the Iron Man still. And just, to me, you seemed so veteran at that time. And yeah, you'd been in the league for a while. We were the same age, but you seemed beyond anything I could even comprehend because of the level that you were playing at and because of how everybody in that locker room respected you, but you were able to cut loose with them and vibe with them a little bit too. I remember the first day I walked in, music was playing. Tolbert, I think, had brought the boombox in. Yeah, it just, those days were so much fun, and it's cool that you remember them that way.
Yeah, we had such a good group, and I think that's really what it came down to. When I got into the locker room as a 21-year-old player, our best players were our best guys. And, you look at the older guys in the team that were just our dudes were Steve and Jordan Gross. And then that middle tier group of guys that I really grew up behind and learned from and modeled my game after. You look at my room, it was Thomas, and then Charles Johnson. And then, on the offensive side of the ball was Gregg and Khalil and Stu. And we just always had really good veteran guys, and Beast was in that room. My first couple of years in the linebacker room, you saw what it looked like. Not only did I have success on the field, but you saw what it looked like to handle yourself correctly off the field as well, and in meetings, in the locker room, with the media, in public. And so when I got into the NFL, I was like, hey, look, I want to have success like John Beeson and Thomas Davis on the field. And, I'm going to watch how they practice, how they prepare. And then, you get in the locker room and you look around the locker room and, guys like Thomas with his charity, and, Gregg Olson, what he does with his foundation. It's just unbelievable what they're able to do. And you say, hey, I want to be a lot like those guys. And what can I do to emulate that?
I kind of want to get into like what made, you stand out as a player. Cause I thought it was interesting in that clip hearing Tony Dungy said, you're like a Peyton Manning on the defensive side. Obviously, like your speed and explosiveness, they pop, but it felt like watching you sometimes you were half a step ahead with what a broadcaster will call instincts, but I know a lot of preparation goes into that. So maybe like walk through for a listener what it took preparation wise to get to that point.
I think a lot of it started when I was in high school. So when I was in high school, our head coach, Steve Specht, he's actually still coaching there now, won a bunch of state championships throughout his time at St. Xavier. He would bring guys in during lunch, and we'd go bring our lunch in to his office, and he'd put on an old VHS tape. And now I'm sounding old, but he put a VHS tape on, or a DVD or whatever it was, and we'd watch the team that we were getting ready to play against. And when you're in high school, you don't really know what you're doing. You don't know what you're looking at, but every once in a while, Specht would be like, hey, look, like this is one of their top concepts. This is what defense I anticipate us being in, which just talk through responsibilities, run fits, pass responsibilities, where we need to be. So then the game would roll around and, you know, you'd be like, wow, like here's what Specht was talking about. And a lot of times for me early on, it would happen after the play was over. So the play would happen. I'd be like, oh man, that was that play that he was talking about. But then what it did teach you was, hey, if I prepare during the week and I'm prepared pre-snap and I know what's going to happen, I can be one step ahead. So I wasn't very good at putting it all together as a young freshman or, you know, young high school kid. But then when we got to college, then it's all digital and I can sort everything. I can sort, you know, personnel groupings, down and distance, situations, who's in the game, all of that stuff. And I had an older guy that I learned from named Wes Davis that was a big tape guy. And he did the same thing that Specht did. Hey, here's a look, here's a play, here's a formation. This is how we're going to be lined up on the defensive side of the ball. This is what we need to do to have success. So then I really kind of learned it from a young age. And then going into college, I had access to way more information and data and, you know, resources. And I learned a lot from Wes. And then I took that as a freshman through my sophomore and my junior year. And then when I got to Carolina, I was just continuing to try to refine my pre-game routine and my preparation. And I think we always talked about how are you able to differentiate yourself before the ball gets snapped? And, you know, rest, recovery, are you in good shape? Are you healthy? And then, you know, obviously this one, the preparation side of where do I need to be? Where do I fit inside the defense? And then ultimately, what is the offense trying to do to us?
Yeah, including, by the way, preparation to the point where I remember the story Ron Rivera likes to tell where he made you go home on Christmas because you were the only one with the light on in the tape room, by the way.
Yeah, no one, my parents weren't in town yet. So I'm like, hey, I'm going to hang in here for longer.
As much time as you can get. Luke, as you're in the league, you know, because in part of defenses like yours and like what you guys were able to do in Carolina, the league started changing faster than ever. And these coaches of these younger coaching trees started coming up and taking from, you know, the Shanahans, the McVays, from the older patrons of that offense and trying to like literally move you and other talented inside linebackers because of what you were so able to do and how you're able to affect the game. And all of these pre-snap motions and at-snap motions and these shifts and these formations started really taking over and changing offense faster than ever. So how did you surf that wave? Because preparation was always such a gift of yours, and understanding the cycles and the philosophical shifts of the league. When it starts moving faster than ever for somebody who is the quarterback of the defense, how did you try to keep defenses from being reactive and more so assertive?
I think what we always thought about was we need to have our feet set when the ball is snapped, right? So, you know, you referenced all these guys, the Shanahans, the McVays, the LaFleurs, I mean, McDaniels, Ben Johnson in Chicago now, and the list goes on with, you know, there's a pre-snap shift and then there's a motion. And then when the ball is snapped, like you said, you nailed it. What they're trying to do is get guys moving sideways pre-snap. And when the ball gets snapped, they're not able to get downhill right away. So what we always talked about was, you know, what is the final formation off of this motion? So once a guy goes in motion, get to your new alignment immediately, get your feet set, put your eyes on your new key and go. I think when people get in trouble is they they're following this jet motion and they're moving sideways and they're high and their feet aren't set and they're looking at the wrong thing, and then the ball gets snapped and their eyes are on the wrong key, and they're slow to pick up, what the play concept might be. So our thought process always was get aligned, get set, have our feet in the ground, and be able to put our foot in the ground and get vertical and get downhill.
Right. Like watching some of the tape that we're showing, if you're watching us on YouTube, is a lot of Luke Kuechly in coverage. And I think that is what you symbolized for a lot of people watching the game, was this new type of linebacker. It was almost a transition back when the other linebacker on this list, Ray Lewis, was playing from it. Run stopping is your primary objective to you have to be able to read the keys in coverage. And that was obviously a strength of yours. Like when you look at the game today and even back when you were doing it, kind of what were the keys to being a complete linebacker that can survive? Because it's become one of the toughest positions, Luke. I'm sure you've seen in the NFL, where now there's only one of you on the field a lot of the times because it's so hard for linebackers to survive in that part of the game in coverage.
I think I'm going to go back to the scheme. I've talked a lot about scheme in Carolina, and the one guy that allowed me to do what I did really well, which was I felt like I was better in pass coverage. We had a really good blitzing linebacker in Thomas Davis. And that was the big thing for me that was super helpful. Was I rather play in coverage and Thomas rather pressure. And our coaches understood that and knew that and weren't too proud to say, you know what, you like doing that, TD, you like doing this, let's kind of make it work. So I think that helped me a lot. And then, the one thing, when you play inside linebacker, especially early in my career, you get matched up on tight ends a lot. You're on tight ends, you're on the number 3 receiver. A lot of stuff is going over the middle of the field. And, we always had Gregg. And so you're in OTAs and training camp, and I always trained with Gregg in the off season. And to have somebody like Gregg that you got to practice against, who was the best tight end in the NFL, he could do everything. He was vertically fast. He had great feel in zone coverage. He knew how to get open in small places, but then he can also be in line and block, and he wouldn't come out of the game. You got a really good feel, at least, we did on the defense side of the ball, for what a real tight end looks like, what it feels like, a guy that not only physically can do it, but mentally was way above everybody else. So I think that helped me a lot as well, was just having the opportunity to practice against a really good player in Gregg my whole career. And then, like I said, Thomas was the pressure guy, so I could sit back in coverage and let Thomas go do his thing.
I'm a sucker for just hearing who were like the toughest guys to go against. So you had Greg Olsen in practice, but you mentioned you're always lined up against tight ends. Like who were some of the toughest that you had to face between a tight end and a quarterback while we're here?
Yeah, I mean, tight ends and quarterback, I think I'm going to kind of go to a different direction. I thought Marshawn Lynch at the running back position was as big of a challenge, I felt like, that we had on a consistent basis. Obviously, they were not a division opponent of us. Obviously, they're an NFC team, but we played them pretty much every year and sometimes twice a year in the playoffs when I was playing in Carolina. And he had so many natural physical abilities, from I felt how he was built to his power and his speed and how he ran the ball. He was kind of wide. He had a very wide base, and it allowed him to get very lateral very quickly. He could sink down in his hips, so he could change direction really well. He had great bursts, but he could also put his shoulder down and run right through. So it was one of those guys where you had to really be smart with how you attacked him and what angle you attacked him, because if he got you head up, he had so many tools in his pocket that he could do. He could put his head down and run through you. He could speed you down, he could slow you down, speed you up. He could put a stiff arm in your chest and push you away, or just run away from you. So, and he was built so physically strong and thick and dense, and he ran with an edge, and he was a fun guy to play against. But when you played against Marshawn Lynch, you're like, man, I better buckle it up, because this is a real running back.
Yeah, I think those were some of the most underrated, became a rivalry, really. Not a lot of people talk about that. Everyone talks about divisions and conferences and all of that, but you guys in the Carolina and the Seahawks, I mean, the trash talk was unreal leading up to those games and in those games, and the energy was insane. Luke, I know we're running on time here, but when I covered you, I did a story about you and fly fishing and your hobby and one of your passions. And you said something that I have never forgotten, and it broke my heart at the time listening to it, because it was so real about what your life was like at that time. And for those listeners who don't know, fly fishing is such a meticulous craft, and it's natural for Luke because you study so much about the movement of the river and the movement of the patterns of the ecosystem around you, and you have to tie your own flies, and the real fly fishermen tie their own flies. But you told me, and this crushed me, that you couldn't tie your own flies during football season because your hands were so messed up. It killed me. I've never forgotten it, about the physicality and the sheer dedication to your craft. I have to ask, can you finally tie your own flies, and do you still fly fish?
I tell you what, you know what? It's whatever you said, 5-6 years out, I feel pretty daggone good right now. So there's not much that I can't do physically, which is hopefully stays that way for a long time.
That's awesome. And yeah, as we mentioned, you're on the show in part, because you and Jourdan have a history together, but mostly because you were on this list. So let's put up the list here for a second. You were number 14 on our list. I mentioned awesome. the other linebacker on the list was Ray Lewis up there at 8. I got heat from Panthers fans. He's not high enough. Kuechly's got to be higher. And then some people
got heat from me, Luke. He's not high enough.
There we go.
I have to admit, Jourdan had nothing to do with the making of this list. So don't fault her. But that's pretty great. I mean, it's tough when you have all-time legends. You have Hall of Famers ahead of you and behind you. I know you will be a finalist for the Hall of Fame this year. The way it works now, they revealed you were in the top 7 last year, so you're automatically a finalist this year. So we wish you luck. And to me, this is an even greater honor than the Hall of Fame there, Luke. So congratulations.
Oh, my God. This is what I deal with, Luke. Come on now.
Appreciate you coming on the show. Thanks, Luke.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thanks again to the great Luke Kuechly. And before we say goodbye to this show, I want to announce something I'm very excited about, that Jourdan Rodrigue is not only going to be back with NFL Daily for another season, but is going to be with us more often in an expanded role. Like, you wanted more Jourdan Rodrigue, you got her. She will be part of the show. We're hoping 3 times a week, all season long.
And if
I'm
you
really
didn't,
excited.
please don't tell me.
Yes. So congrats. I'm really excited. It's one of the things, obviously, we've been talking about this a long time, our vision for the show. And I look at it as our vision, you having a big voice in that.
I'm grateful. I mean, I feel like, the first day on the show, kind of out of nowhere, being, you calling me, asking if I could help out, and me thinking it was just going to be a short-term thing, and crying and of course becoming the person that feels all the things all the time on the show. I've learned so much, and I like working with you because, first of all, you're so supportive and you're such an advocate. And you
Please
did say,
no more compliments.
you said recently,
Colleen did too many.
You said recently on this show you're trying to get better at taking compliments. So this is a test for you here. You changed my life, honestly, and I've said that to you before, and I never thought I could get an opportunity to do this in this studio that means a great deal to me to sit in, and to sit in more frequently than I was last season. And I just want to keep getting better. And I want to keep sharing with people how much love I have for football and how much joy I find in even the mundane, tiny details of football. And I want to thank you and the folks at iHeart and NFL Media and everybody's been so invested in helping me get better. And I just want to keep growing.
And we're going to do that. It's going to be onwards and upwards. And kind of related to that, Jourdan's on the show Thursday. So get used to...
I'm going to sit right between you and Bridget Condon.
Ooh, yeah, we're having Bridget too.
And slowly wilt in my chair as they trade.
No, it'll be fine.
Northeast Bostonian insults.
It'll be fine. Yes, we're going to talk a little bit on Thursday's show. Of course, update you with all the news. But we're also introducing you to the corridor of uncertainty. Look, when we're getting a big contract signed, not just the NFL teams to start training camp, man, football's back. Pumped. Jourdan's got to be with us 3 times a week.